Hey yo gang, what's happening? It's your boy Araine TJ back again with another reaction video, and today we're doing something different, right? Today's a prequel to one of the videos or the type of videos that I want to do for y'all. I remember saying it in a video, prior video. I was mentioning how I want to like go around my area and just like draw older buildings. So this building I'm working on, this is the first building I did. It's a really old church near to me. It's over 100 years old. I went out there, I spent like almost 2 hours doing a quick sketch. Now I'm gonna just work on it a little bit from image. I might go back out there if the weather, allows. And we're gonna do this video here from the family. Now remember, you gotta subscribe and drop a like. You could do the same for me. And let's get straight into today's video.
Nobody wins when the family feels.
People in the Marsh service and Akron work together on this. They spent countless hours trying to track these individuals down.
Their top story tonight, an exclusive look here inside the arrest of 3 men in connection with the beating death of an Akron teen. The U.S. Marshals Violent Fugitive Task Force also credits the public's help for cracking the case. 17-year-old Ethan Liming was found beaten and unconscious outside of the I Promise school last week. Marshals say brothers Tyler and Deshaun Stafford and cousin Donovan Jones live near the I Promise school where Liming was playing basketball with friends. The Marshals office says Liming was shooting at people with a splatter ball water gel gun. That's when the teen was knocked unconscious and beaten to death. The arrest comes shortly after a $30,000 reward was announced in the case. And while they're getting answers now, those who know Liming are still coping with their loss.
Everybody would say, enough's enough. Enough is enough is enough is enough. Respect our decision. But whatever happens, I do thank you. I can't walk away saying that we got railroaded. I don't like how it happened. I don't like the tragedy. Fate hands you bad cards sometimes. Maybe this is how it play out, but we got our day in court. I appreciate that. The jury heard what they heard, they decided what they decide.
I left my son in the middle of an I Promise parking lot about to die alone. Judge, this is a picture of self-defense this jury claimed. Media, this is what it looks like when 3 adult men beat my teenage 17-year-old minor son to death.
Family, this is a case I've been watching for a minute, and I couldn't wait to bring it to you guys' attention.
That's so
We're going
sad.
to court. I want you guys to play a jury and give me you guys' decision on a verdict at the end. 5 years ago, in Akron, Ohio, LeBron James and his foundation had built a school called I Promise.
Joining us today and taking some time out on a very busy day.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Have you been able to get over the first day of school jitters?
I have not. I'm still having jitters right now. Today's my first day actually seeing the school, and I told, my foundation and I told the Akron Public, I didn't want to see it until the first day. I wanted to be just as surprised as the kids, so the jitters are still here. It's an exciting time for all of us.
That was a huge accomplishment for not only LeBron James and his family and his foundation, but for the ones that use this everyday school system, like the citizens of Akron, Ohio. Now, it was huge news that a young teenager had lost his life outside the grounds of the I Promise school. A tragic event unfolded that will forever change the lives of several families and stir up a storm of questions about justice, accountability, and the very nature of truth itself. But we all know, family, our actions have reactions. It's a tale that forces us to grapple with the uncomfortable questions. Was it a case of self-defense, as claimed by the defendants, or brutal assault? Did the justice system serve its purpose, or did it fall short? Who, if anyone, was right in this scenario? And did the jury get it right? So as we delve deeper into the intricate details of this case, family, I want you guys to remember, you playing the jury. We're stepping into the courtroom. Based on the public facts, I need your verdict. But before we go over this one, remember, I don't give you no angle. I just give you the story. So with that being said, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. We'll jump right to it. So in this video, I'm going to prepare to propose the story as questions to give you guys a better perspective in getting the verdict. Family, who was truly at fault on a fateful June evening outside the I Promise school in Akron, Ohio, when 17-year-old Ethan Liming's life was tragically cut short? May he rest in peace. A level of condolences to his family. Was it the 3 teenagers, the 3 young men, Tyler and Deshaun Stafford and Donovan Jones, who were initially charged with M1? But was it a tragic result of a fight gone wrong? You guys will let me know at the conclusion. Ethan's demise was caused by a blunt force head injury. after his head was struck by the asphalt during the altercation. It was quickly ruled a homicide by the Summers County Medical Examiner Office. Yet, the night of Ethan's demise, he began with a group of friends pulling into the school parking lot and engaging in what was described as a fight with 3 other males who were playing basketball. Now, the defense attorneys later claimed that their clients was chased from the basketball court after being hit with hundreds and hundreds of frozen liquid rounds of splat R-ball firearms. He alleged that his client were assaulted before they defended themselves. But during the pretrial, they gave them $1 million bond before any of the evidence was even presented to their attorneys.
Beating 17-year-old Ethan Liming to death are being held on $1 million bond each after making their first appearance in court. Our Neil Fisher has the details, including the significant role Crime Stoppers played in finding those suspects.
3 suspects in the death of Ethan Liming were arrested Saturday after more than a week of searching and a $30,000 reward that was offered for information in the case.
I believe Summit County Crime Stoppers did receive a few tips initially, but once the reward went to $30,000, we received significantly more tips.
I've been retained by the family.
In court Monday, the attorney for Deshaun Stafford Jr. said his client had a different explanation of what happened the night of Ethan Liming's death, saying the suspects were defending themselves after they were shot at with what appeared to be a real gun that turned out to be fake.
After these boys were sprayed with the firearm, then the boys from the other vehicle got out, chased them out of the court, assaulted them, and a fight did ensue, where my client is alleged to have defended himself.
Sin told 3 News they believe the gel-like ammunition inside the fake gun was frozen to make them hard like a BB, potentially resulting in injury of his client.
These were sprayed hundreds of rounds over the court, and many of the kids, 3 of the kids, all 3 got hit with them.
Tyler Stafford's aunt spoke Monday following the court hearing and says there needs to be accountability for those that instigated the incident.
Them other 3 need to be brought up here just like the rest of them and take just as much accountability as them.
The defense asking the community to wait before rushing to judge the 3 suspects.
We need to wait, not rush to judgment before we condemn these 3 kids for really doing what we want them to do, which is something, wholesome, out there shooting hoops as opposed to out there shooting guns.
The defense tells me that they expect an indictment in this case. That could be a month away. Then hearings would follow that. Defense attorney John Sin tells me that they will be ready for trial if the case moves forward. Laura.
All right, we'll have to see what happens next.
After being incarcerated for almost 2 months, because of course, not many people can afford $1 million bond, which is probably why they made it so high. After about 2 months waiting in jail, they reduced the bond after more evidence was presented to the court, but not to the attorney. Check out that court date. But as the jury, I want you guys to ask yourself this, family. If this was self-defense, why was there 3 initially charged with M? Was the reduction of their charges to lesser counts in August justifiable, or did it reflect a failing in our justice system?
This is Deshaun Stafford, correct? Good, thank you. Let's, I'm going to mute Mr. Slipville just momentarily. All right, this is State of Ohio versus Deshaun Stafford, 2022-07-2798, Defendant A. We are conducting proceedings today via video. I do have Mr. Stafford present via video from the Summit County Jail. I also have his counsel, John Sin, present via video. Mr. Stafford, if you need to speak with your counsel, let me know that, and I will give you that opportunity. Otherwise, are you waiving your right to be physically present in court today? Mr. Stafford, I'm just asking if you're okay doing this by video.
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. We are set for arraignment. Mr. Sin.
Good morning, Your Honor. Attorney John Sin, having you retained on behalf of Mr. Stafford. Judge Sean has received a copy of this indictment. I've gone over it with him. He's read it, he understands it. He knows the potential penalties. We waive a reading of the court, waive the defects in time and manner of service. We'd like to let everybody who's not guilty of these charges and have this set for a pretrial. Judge, I'd like to be heard on bond.
And for the record, Attorney Mike Callahan is also present. My understanding is that Mr. Callahan is representing the family of Ethan Liming in this matter. Is that correct, Mr. Callahan?
That's correct, Your Honor. And I have communicated with the family wishes to be prosecutor LaPrenzi, so we're, I guess, fairly comfortable in having them speak on our behalf. So I don't really anticipate saying anything other than acknowledging to you now that I'm here.
Thank you, Mr. Callahan. All right, as to bond, go ahead, Mr. Sin.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, we've been waiting for this day for a while because, as you know, Sean's been locked up along with his co-defendants. And since the time that he was originally arrested, things have changed drastically. So what we are going to ask you today to do is give us a bond. And we're not arguing for anything special. We're going to be arguing for bond. And what I'm going to appeal to you, Judge, is I'm going to appeal to you in a sense of fairness. This process has not been fair so far, and maybe that's the way it's set up. What I mean by that is Sean was originally arrested and charged with murder. We had no information other than what the prosecutor and the police had, and they don't share that with us. In fact, up until this time, we still don't have it today. We're going to start going down that process. But we do know that something changed in that investigation between the time that Sean was arrested and charged with murder and the time that the grand jury heard this case. We don't know what went on in the grand jury, but according to the prosecutor, in the statement released, the grand jury heard evidence that they can't tell us about right now, but there's some kind of evidence that caused the grand jury to take a look at this. And what came out of the grand jury, and you know we have to respect that process, we do, what came out of the grand jury were different charges, involuntary manslaughter. So what we're asking for you to do today is to not set a bond based on the whole murder charges, but set a bond based on what we now know the grand jury considered involuntary manslaughter. I don't envy your position because, like myself, you don't have the information at this point in time. You don't know what went on. I know your normal procedure would be to ask for your pretrial release department to look into this case and find out what the history about my client. I can tell you he's a young man. He's got a nice family. He was minding his own business, and he has been locked up, and he is anxious to get his day in court. So I'm not asking for anything different for my client or anybody else. I'm asking to set the same bond on this involuntary manslaughter that you would in any other case. And I don't even imply this is any other case. Mr. Lyman's death is a tragedy, truly. But we live in a world of tragedies, and judges have to preside over tragedies, and you've been given that unfortunate past, and all we are asking for is fairness. So what we are asking for today is a much lower bond. The bond has set at $1 million. That might as well be $1 billion to working folks in Akron. I'm asking you to look at what you've done before in involuntary manslaughter and consider a bond of that nature. Your pretrial release department can keep an eye on Sean if that's what you need to do. I'm in communication with him. His family's supportive. He's a local kid. I can assure you he'll make his court appearances. At this time, Judge, please accept our not guilty plea and please consider a bond modification. And if you feel like you need more information, I reserve my right to come back and argue it after you get a pretrial release report. But this is a big day for us, and Sean's anxious to get home. Thank you.
So for the record, I do have a pretrial risk assessment, and it does give me some further information, mostly on Mr. Mr. Stafford's criminal record. He has no adult record. He does have a juvenile record, which is, I guess I will let the prosecutor speak to that. It exists in our world. It's not extensive, I guess, is what I would say. But Mr. LaPrenzi, on behalf of the state.
Thank you, Judge. A couple things. He does have a misdemeanor adult over plea.
Okay.
From 2021.
Wow. This guy.
You can see that he has 3 prior convictions in juvenile court, or adjudications from juvenile court, being an assault and criminal trespass, and also a failure by the police.
Painting him as a bad guy immediately.
So those are obviously concerning to us as flight risks, which is obviously one of the paramount things that the court has to consider in these cases, is whether he's going to appear or not. Until June 11th, he never indicated that he was involved in this fight. There was nothing about this that would indicate that he was, willing to, come forward and participate in the judicial process. As far as, Mr. Sin's kind of indicating that nothing's been fair about this, it probably doesn't have any relevance to this court, but for the record, the process has been fair. The state of Ohio, some county prosecutors also has 60 days to indict an individual who's been arrested, and we're within that 60 days. What came out of grand jury is what grand jury has decided based on the evidence presented. Mr. Sin and the other two defendants, his client and the other two defendants were all offered the opportunity to come to grand jury, and they declined that, which is their absolute right to do. But the process has actually been very fair, and I think it's working based on what's happening in this case. So I would put all that on the record. Having said that, Mr. Sin is right that it is no longer a murder charge, and the bond should be set appropriately. We don't disagree with that. The pretrial risk assessment and the information we've received on Mr. Deshaun Stafford does bring some concern to us about his flight risk. In this case, he has acknowledged in an interview most of the facts of this case. He has admitted he is the one that struck the blow, causing Mr. Lyman to be knocked out, which caused his death. So we know there's a strong likelihood of his culpability in this case. Because of that, but in light of the charges and based on pretrial release and his flight risk, which I know your pretrial release staff has taken into account, but for the state of Ohio, we are concerned and we would ask that you double his recommendation with a 10% bond. We know the defendant's facing 3 to 11 to 16 and a half years. So it's a significant sentence, potential, and so that increases, I think, the likelihood of flight. So we would ask that you double the recommendation of pretrial release. We would also ask that you, if you were to make bond, we would ask that there be no contact order with the Lyman family. We would also ask that he be placed on GPS monitoring so that we know where he is at all times.
Your Honor, if I could respond, I have no objection to GPS. I appreciate the prosecutor's position about fairness. The system works, whether it be the same way in every case, but if it were fair, I would know what he's talking about when he says the police reports say this and the police reports say that. If it were fair, we would know what was said to the grand jury that changed their mind about this being a murder case. Only the prosecutor has that information. We don't get to see that, so I can't respond to his allegations. What I can tell you is, Sean hired a lawyer. We worked on this case early on. We never ran with anybody. We showed up in court. We are defending this case to our fullest ability. I don't think it's fair to take into consideration factors that are known only to the prosecutor and things that they won't show us. Once we see the evidence, we can have a real conversation about that. But in the meantime, we got a young boy sitting in jail on an exceptionally high bond. I'm going to ask you to consider a much lower recommendation, Your Honor, and follow the recommendations of pretrial release. Thank you.
Judge, I would just say this. Mr. Sin, are you requesting discovery today?
I am. I'm also requesting whatever Mr. Gester was talking about when he said that the grand jury had new information or they heard secret information they couldn't share with the press.
Who said that?
So, and I believe that through the media, Prosecutor Brad Gessner did say something that there was some new evidence or something.
And this is the first request we've had for discovery in this case. Nobody's requested it. I've had contact. I've offered them to come to grand jury and testify. And so this is the first request we've had for discovery. So we're more than happy to do it. We'll probably have it to you tomorrow. I would also sit down and meet with any defense counsel, talk to them about the facts of the case, and go over that with them whenever they need. But since Mr. Sin has made a discovery request, we'll send that to him probably tomorrow, and he'll have everything, and he'll know everything we know.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judge.
And Mr. Sin, I assume you are requesting a pretrial at this point as well?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. At this time, I do have, as I said, the pretrial risk assessment. My staff has put together background information and additional information that this court routinely would have and would routinely consider in cases of this type. At this time, I will modify bond in the amount of $25,000, 10%. Maximum pretrial supervision with GPS monitoring, no contact with any of the victims alleged in the indictment, and including the family of Mr. Liming, of course. So at this time, that will be the bond modification. And
Judge, before you set the date,
yes,
because it has taken a little longer because we were trying to be very thorough in this case and present all the evidence to the grand jury, it did take a little bit of time. So we have, the defendant has been in custody since June 11th, so we have 90, obviously, days while he's in custody. So based on that, we need to either set a trial date if we're within about 40 days of speedy trial deadline, or if Mr. Sin is willing to at least ask for a continuance or as far as time goes. Otherwise, we're going to need to be pretty quick on our first pretrial and the trial date.
okay. Well, I think if Mr. Sin is requesting a pretrial, that will toll for that period.
This period of time. That's fine.
Mr. Sin, you agree with that?
You know, Your Honor, I have to, but I'm in a bad position because, like I said, I've got a new discovery. I've got to see what they have. I can't ask for trial now, but this young man's locked up, so I'm going to have to waive his speedy trial rights. But I'm really doing it to the pretrial, Judge. I'm not doing it beyond that. I hope his family makes bond, but it's a lot of money. If not, the clock's running. But yeah, I want to see what they have. I want to do my job, so I'm going to ask for a pretrial.
And how much time would you like for that pretrial?
2 weeks, Your Honor.
2?
Yes.
Okay.
And John, you can call me. We talk.
Thank you.
All right, that would be August the 18th at 8:30.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, everyone.
And obviously, or not, maybe not obviously, but Mr. Sin, as you are aware in your practice in this court, that is assuming that Mr. Stafford remains incarcerated. Should he make bond, then that time may change to later in the morning.
Should he make bond, then I am going to definitely be looking for more time to do the best job I can. But right now, the clock's running, except for the time I'm waiting here. I get that. Thank you, Judge.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sin. Thank you, Mr. Stafford.
Thank you.
You can tell the deputies that you're done. Thanks.
Great, thank you.
At least I didn't have to try and maneuver so you could get a picture of the defendant. I didn't hit my leg. I've done it all today. Is Ed Gallagher on yet, Judge?
Deputy, are you there? right, is this Mr. Jones? Okay, very good. Sir, can you get a little bit closer to the mic so that we can hear you? Thank you. All right, this is State of Ohio versus Donovan Jones, 2022-07-2498, Defendant C. We are conducting proceedings today via video. I do have Mr. Jones present via video from Summit County Jail. I also have his counsel, Eddie Siplin, present via video. Mr. Jones, if you need to speak with Mr. Siplin, let me know that and I will give you that opportunity. Otherwise, are you waiving your right to be physically present in court today? Yeah, I'm just asking if you're okay doing this by video.
Yeah.
Okay. We are set for arraignment. Mr. Siplin. You're muted, Eddie. Let me do it. There.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. On behalf of Donovan Jones, I have had an opportunity to speak with him regarding the indictment, and it's my understanding that he has been indicted on a misdemeanor of the first-degree assault charge, and I would also join in, before we get into arraignment, with Mr. Sin on making an oral motion for discovery. But on behalf of Mr. Jones, we would enter a not guilty plea, and we would respectfully ask for a pretrial. If the court is so inclined so as to keep the co-defendants together, I am available on August 18th, and we would also like to be heard on the matter of bond, Your Honor. But he will be entering a not guilty plea.
Go ahead, Mr. Siplin, as to bond.
Thank you, Your Honor. And please, the court. Without echoing a lot of what Mr. Sin has already said, but this case started out where my client was charged with murder, and the bond was set at $1 million. While I don't agree with the charge or the bond that was set, but after the matter came back to the grand jury, my client is charged with a misdemeanor of first degree. He has no prior juvenile record that I've been able to find, and he definitely has no adult record. And based on this, we would respectfully ask the court to modify Mr. Jones' bond to a personal recognizance bond with whatever conditions the court would like to impose.
Mr. LaPrenzi?
Yes, Your Honor. With Mr. Jones, he is obviously indicted with it's actually two misdemeanors with two separate victims.
Can you?
Oh, I'm sorry. So the defendant in this case has been indicted with two misdemeanors with two separate victims in this case. Obviously, it's not what he was initially charged with. I did look at the pretrial release, and I did not see a recommendation from them on this defendant. However, just from his lack of record, based on the amount of time he's already been in, which is, I believe it's 40 to 50 days, and based on his lack of criminal record, Your Honor, I'm going to leave it to the discretion of the court. I believe we have about 30 days from the time he's indicted in order to try his case. So again, in this situation, we would be asking that if he is in custody, or either way, we're going to have to set a trial date or have Mr. Siplin ask for continuance. Obviously, he's asking for discovery, so that tolls a little bit of time. But I'm just letting the court aware when you're going to get ready to set the time, a date that we need to do this to make sure we are within our speedy trial rights. So at this point, I would leave it to the discretion of the court based on similar type cases of this nature and charges to set the bond appropriately in this case.
Thank you, Mr. LaPrenzi.
And I guess I should ask that there be a no contact order for him also.
Okay. Mr. Siplin, again, you are requesting a first pretrial, and therefore speedy trial would toll at least until that first pretrial. Do you agree with that?
Yes, Your Honor. We would wait up until the first pretrial.
All right, at this time, I will modify bond to a $5,000 signature bond, no contact with the victims or the victims' families in this matter, and I will set this for 9:30 on August the 18th, Mr. Siplin?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Jonathan, call me when you get out.
And Eddie, feel free to call.
Okay, will do, Brian.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I do not yet have counsel for the third co-defendant on that matter. Hopefully he will be joining us. And Mr. Jones, you can tell the deputy that you are done with court. Thank you.
Deputies. Deputies.
Yeah, Mr. Jones, you can actually stand up and go stand in the doorway. They'll see you there.
Now, the brothers are the two men with hair you guys see on the screen, Deshaun and Tyler Stafford. They went to trial alone, and they was found guilty of aggravated assault and assault. They was sentenced to the max time, but only up to 18 months.
All rise.
Good afternoon, everyone. Please be seated. This is State of Ohio versus Deshaun Stafford and Tyler Stafford, 2022-07-2498, defendants A and B. Both Mr. Staffords have been previously convicted of various charges. Defendant A, Deshaun Stafford, has been convicted of aggravated assault, a felony of the 4th degree, and assault, a misdemeanor of the 1st degree. Tyler Stafford has been convicted of assault, a misdemeanor of the 1st degree. We are set for sentencing this afternoon. I did order pre-sentence investigations. I have seen those, and I will look to counsel to confirm that you have received those pre-sentence investigations as well. Ms. Shuki, on behalf of the state?
We have, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Deshaun Stafford is present in court in the custody of the sheriff, represented by Attorney John Sin. Mr. Sin, have you seen that PSI?
I have, Your Honor.
And Mr. Tyler Stafford is present in court, represented by Attorney Don Gallick. Mr. Gallick.
Saw and reviewed.
All right. Very good. If you're speaking, if you could all just make sure that your mics are on so that everyone who is here remotely can also hear. We are, I assume, counsel prepared to proceed to sentencing at this time. Correct?
Yes.
That's correct.
Very well. Anything on behalf of the state? As an initial matter, I know that there has been a request that the defendants go first as to their sentencing arguments. Anything
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. All right. Very good then. Why don't we start with defendant A, Deshaun Stafford. Mr. Sin, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court. This is a very emotional day, Judge. Obviously, it's very emotional. We've got a lot at stake. But there are certain formalities that we need to discuss just to set expectations here. My client, Sean Stafford, was found guilty of a 4th-degree felony. He's currently in custody. And he's going to be given an appeal because that's what we do. We give appeals after a finding. So that's going to happen, even though as the defense counsel, at the same time, I'm thanking the court for what I consider to be a fair trial. Everybody got to speak. I can't sit here in good faith and say that you don't know what happened or you didn't get the full gist of this or that we didn't get our day in court because, frankly, we did. But there's going to be an appeal. I won't be the lawyer for that, but there will be an appeal. There always is. And we're at a point now where the victim's family, Ethan's family, is looking for my client to take some responsibility and my client to acknowledge what happened here and his role in this. And I will tell you that we all know what was said in the pre-sentence investigation earlier on. He did take responsibility. As a lawyer, I should have told him what I've told him now, which is you've got an appeal. You can't look at these folks and say you're sorry because there's an appeal. The law gives you one. You've got to do it. So I don't expect that to happen today. Likewise, I've got a group of folks here to tell you what a great kid my client is and why you should go one way or the other. And that's very effective strategy in a normal case where you didn't hear everything, where someone pled guilty and you know nothing about them, and you need to know who these people are and these people are. You know all that. We did all that. I can't imagine anybody would have a better view of this tragedy than you. And that's what it is. It's a complete tragedy. And there's nothing I can tell you don't know. But I would respectfully ask the court for indulgence, and I would remind the court of what the court already knows, and that's that when I stood up here in the trial and I said, give me a criminal rule 29, give me a directed verdict, throw this case out because of this, and this. You said, Mr. Sin, we're almost done. I'm not taking this away from the jury. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to interfere with the jury. You've had your day in court, you've had your trial, let a jury decide it. And if everything goes one way, deal with it. The other way, deal with it. We all agreed to that, and we gave it to a jury. And we're here for a 4th-degree felony. We're not here for what could have been or what may be in the future. My client is responsible for a 4th-degree felony, and the law talks about 4th-degree felonies. In fact, what these folks don't know is that you don't just get to, judges don't just get to flip a coin. You're given guidelines, and you're given sentencing factors, and you know them like the back of your hand. I know you do. But it's a 4th-degree felony. There's a presumption under the law that you get community control. There's a presumption for that. That's what the lawmakers in Columbus who don't know anything about this family or anything about the Ethan that could have been tell you do on a 4th-degree felony. And every day you deal with 4th-degree felonies. And every month you have dozens or hundreds, who knows, and you treat them a certain way. And in this case, no matter what the jury could have done, what they did was a 4th-degree felony, and you go through the sentencing factors. And I know one of the factors you're going to look at is this the most serious form of the offense? I get that. And frankly, it could be. I mean, Ethan, there's nothing more serious than a promising young man that's dead. There's nothing more serious than that. There's no way to make that right. There's no way to factor that into some legal equation. You can't factor in the hurt that these folks have. But the law does put niceties on it, and some of them are hard to hear. And one of the niceties is, or one of the parts of the equation are, when you decide whether this is the most serious form of the offense, I will give you nothing's more serious than the Ethan that could have been. But you do have to look at the factors, and one of the factors is, did the victim facilitate the commission of the offense? Did the victim have anything at all to say did he do anything? Is he minding his own business? Is this a situation where stranger on stranger? And no, these were kids and they were fighting. And we all know that through self-defense. We know that because the jury said it's self-defense to a large degree. That was the whole case. We all know that. We know what Deshaun did. We know the punch he threw. We know what Ethan did. We know that it was a prank and that's it. He's a good kid. But to say that this is the same as me randomly running up and shooting somebody who's minding their own business is different. This was a horrible, tragic accident. And if you base your entire decision on the loss that this family has felt, you can't give enough time. You don't have enough time to give somebody to make up for that. So I don't envy your position. But if you do the math and you do what you said we have to do, which is not take it away from the jury, then you got a 4th degree felony. And the 4th degree felony has a presumption that he go home. He's been in jail, out of jail. Right now, I mean, his life's different than other folks' life. He's a high school graduate. He's a kid, but he's a man. He's got a fiance in the hospital today, giving birth today. She's 2 centimeters dilated right now, and he's sitting here chained to this table. Actions have consequences. I get that, but that is the reality. Can't give their kid back. Can't do it. The law doesn't factor in emotion. It's a 4th degree felony. He's been living this for 2 years. We can't fix the tragedy that was, but we can maybe stop the tragedy that is. And I'm not asking for favors. I'm asking you to do what the jury suggested, follow what their intent was. Maybe ask yourself if, and again, I've never been a judge. I don't know how hard it is. I don't mean to disrespect, but maybe ask yourself, if I were one of those 12 jurors and I asked them what they wanted to have happen, if I said, what do you think is fair? I bet you every one of them would say, enough's enough. Enough is enough is enough is enough. Respect our decision. But whatever happens, I do thank you. I can't walk away saying that we got railroaded. I don't like how it happened. I don't like the tragedy. Fate hands you bad cards sometimes. Maybe this is how to play out, but we got our day in court. I appreciate that. The jury heard what they heard. They decided what they decide. Now we're here to take responsibility. I will tell you that you sit here wondering why you can't look at these folks and take responsibility. I'm telling you, I'm advising him to appeal because that's what you do. So you're going to have to read the appeal rights, and it doesn't mean anything. But I would ask you to note in the PSI, he did own up to throwing that punch. I can guarantee you that if he could go back and erase that night, God, wouldn't we all? But I'm advising him not to say anything. I know you're really fire of him. He spent a lot of time in jail. I'm hoping they can put it behind him. I thank you for your courtesy today, and I thank you for considering my position.
Thank you, Mr. Sin. Mr. Deshaun Stafford, I've heard what Mr. Sin has said about you making a statement, but the law does require that I ask you directly if there is anything that you would like to say to me or to the court prior to my imposing a sentence this afternoon. Mr. Gallagher.
Thank you, Your Honor. Obviously, there are some differences between the brother. Tyler Stafford does not stand here accused of convicted of a 4th degree felony. He's convicted of a 1st degree misdemeanor. The court knows that this is Tyler's first ever criminal conviction. I don't believe there's any juvenile adjudications as well. This is the first time he's been convicted of anything. Unlike his brother, Tyler is not a high school graduate. I've spent a lot of time with him over the last year and a half or so. It's kind of like I've said before, he's a very soft-spoken, very soft-natured young man. Certainly not someone that was originally accused of, aggravated murder or murder and then manslaughter. The charges kept going farther and farther down. Obviously, the jury knew it wasn't a murder, it wasn't a manslaughter. He's convicted of 1st degree misdemeanor assault, which is still a crime. It's a misdemeanor, it's a misdemeanant, to use that term. But Tyler Stafford, I'd say I've spent a lot of time with him. I've had very good interactions with him throughout my entire representation, but he doesn't have a lot of structure. He needs to finish school. He needs to get out and work. We have a labor shortage in this country. We need him working and paying taxes. I believe that he has served on this case already, I think, 55, 56 days, somewhere in the middle of 50s, close to 2 months, let's just say. The maximum sentence is 180 days on this. I'm not sure what would be accomplished in returning him to jail. Certainly, a term of probation might be the appropriate sentence, might be doing the community a favor, and candidly, you might be doing Tyler a favor to keep an eye on him and to give him some structure and to make sure that he doesn't have any future, that this is his one and only criminal case in his life. That would be a major accomplishment. Obviously, the tragedy that happened, you're in a misdemeanor case, you don't have a young man who is deceased. It does happen occasionally. I know you've been a judge a long time, we've been practicing a long time. You see vehicular homicide cases that are misdemeanors, you see bar fights that turn into misdemeanor homicide, but it's unusual. Usually if someone convicted of first-degree misdemeanor assault, it's a bar fight, it's some people in a restaurant arguing, something like that. And for someone to be convicted of a first-degree misdemeanor of their first ever offense, they're not going to do 2 months in jail. Not in this courthouse, probably not in any courthouse in the state of Ohio. Someone with no criminal history, first offense, and they're convicted of a first-degree misdemeanor. And first-degree misdemeanor that certainly everyone made mistakes that night on all sides wasn't a first-degree misdemeanor that he went out looking to accomplish, that he went out looking to cause trouble that night. But we all know the awful and tragic result. So if we were to have a sentence imposed in this case that would be very, very comparable to other misdemeanor assault convictions, both in this county and throughout Ohio, a 2-month sentence would be rather on the high end, I would say, someone convicted of a first-degree misdemeanor. I'd ask the court to consider a very lengthy period of probation for Tyler, and perhaps putting a lot of conditions to keep a close eye on him, to make sure that he stays on the straight and narrow, and that this conviction doesn't send him down a path where this is his first of many cases. I want this to be his first and his only case ever, and I think that might happen if the court keeps a very close eye on him. I thank the court for its time.
Thank you, Mr. Gallick. Mr. Stafford, is there anything you would like to say prior to sentencing? Okay. Anything further on behalf of the defense?
No, Your Honor.
Bishop?
Your Honor, I'm sorry. Oh, no. Okay. Never mind.
No one to speak on behalf of the defense?
I discussed it on behalf of my client. You have the right to speak. There are a lot of folks here to support, but again, we've all been here the whole time. We are just going to leave this to you, so thank you.
Fair enough.
Okay. Thank you. Bishop?
Thank you, Your Honor. I guess I would first have members of the victim's family who wish to speak address the court.
Okay, very well. Mr. Lyman, hello. I know you've been here. We've seen each other a lot. We have never spoken, and so if you would please just state your name for the court reporter, and then I'm happy to hear from you.
My name is Bill Lyman.
Okay, go ahead.
People have asked how our family keeps going. To be honest with you, I have no idea. People have asked how we're feeling. Again, I don't even have the words to explain it. How am I supposed to feel? My son was brutally assaulted and was killed by the actions of 3 men because he made a bad choice to fool around with a child's water toy. And the jury somehow called that self-defense. And none of the 3 now are going to be held accountable. Deshaun Tyler, this is how you left my son in the middle of an iconic parking lot, about to die alone. Judge, this is a picture of self-defense this jury claimed. Media, this is what it looks like when 3 adult men beat my teenage 17-year-old minor son to death. This is what it looks like for them to claim self-defense. It does not look like self-defense to me in the theory of the one punch. The night that you and your cousins attacked and took my son's life, Deshaun, you already had a warrant out for your arrest. It was issued on May 12, 2022, because you failed to follow through on a treatment program from a previous arrest. If you had followed through, perhaps you would have made different choices, but you didn't do that. Ever since June 2nd, 2022, I wake up every night between 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock a.m. It's not because I want to. I wake up at that time period because that was the time period in which I found out that my son was killed by the police. The police let me know that my son had been killed. I can't sleep anymore. My question is, do you lie awake every single night reliving June 2nd? Because I do. I start each day thinking about what you and your cousin did to my son, Ethan. Every time I drive by the I Promise school, I am filled with absolute heartache and fear. If only I could have been there to help my child that night. If only I could have held my son in my arms one more time. But you stole that opportunity away from me. I pulled into the parking lot to sit at the spot where my son was killed. I've sat in the dark bloodstain in that parking lot where my son's life drained away. Every moment of the day, I continue to rethink all of the choices you could have made
that would have made a difference not only for my child, but for you as well. After you and your cousin ran away from Ethan's friends, you could have chosen to call the police if you believed you were wrong. You didn't do that. You could have left the area if you believed you were in danger. You didn't do that either. You chose to go across the parking lot and engage Ethan, who at that point was still sitting in his car, until you came over to the car. When Ethan was beaten unconscious, you made the choice to further attack him. You then attacked the one person who was trying to get help for Ethan as he lay on the pavement dying. Did you make any attempt to stop? Did you do anything to help a helpless person dying on the ground? You didn't. You chose to stand in the way of any help that Ethan could get by attacking the person who was making the 911 call and making that call come to an end. You attacked his friends, you destroyed cell phones, you moved the car, destroying a crime scene. For some reason, you weren't charged for any of those things, and I have no idea why. You then went and fled the scene. You had somebody take off your license plate from your car and hid your car. That's not the behavior of innocent people. And somehow this jury decided that's self-defense. The jury clearly lost its way, ignored evidence, and believed an uncorroborated, unsupported, self-serving statement that's not backed up by any evidence whatsoever. From what I've heard, this is called clearly jury nullification. My other son has been physically attacked on more than one occasion, with his attacker citing comments that came directly from newspaper articles, glorifying you and demonizing and disparaging my son Ethan. They told him they were going to stomp his head in like his brothers. My son is being gravely affected by this. We are not certain how life is going to turn out. People have sent our family emails and harassed us online because of the choices you have made. One of those stands out in my mind where the author was laughing because you and your cousin crushed my son's head like a watermelon. I've turned those emails into the police, but they say they can't do anything about it. It's just another example of what our lives have become since you made your choices that resulted in the death of my son on June 2nd. Our mental health is gone and we are devastated. Ethan had dreams of his senior year in high school playing sports. He was going to graduate with honors to go off to college at Ohio State. What the prosecutors failed to say about my child during the trial, they didn't humanize him, was that he spent weeks of his summers going with me to impoverished people across our nation. He would feed people who were hungry, he helped to fix their homes, he repaved their driveways. Since Ethan was a really little boy, he stood out at Grace Park in Akron right by my side, clothing and feeding people who have absolutely nothing, because he cared about people who are hungry. Your actions led to the death of that child. All of the good that Ethan accomplished in his life lies dead in the ground now because of the choices you two made. I lie down in the dirt of my son's grave just wishing I could be near him again. You've stolen the way to life and the dreams I've had as a father. Very soon your life just gets to move on. Ours never will. Our understanding of our world died on June 2nd. Our faith in the justice system died this fall. I will only live so much longer. I'm not going to live forever. But my other son has the rest of his life to deal with the fact that you were a part of killing his best friend and his brother that day. I will never know exactly what you did that night, but you better believe God does. God knows it all. But I do know you did nothing to help my son, and your actions and your choices resulted in my son being left for dead and alone in the middle of the parking lot at the I Promise School. This is where you left him. That's what he left. That's what it was.
Jeez.
That's where you fled from. Our family has to somehow in every moment of every day deal with this nightmare. Again, very soon your life just gets to move on. As one father to another father, I heard you had a baby today, or you're having a baby today. I ask that you teach your child to be good and to love everyone the way that Ethan loved everyone. Ethan would stand out in the freezing weather at Grace Park in Akron to help clothe and feed homeless people who had nothing. That's what you killed. Ethan had that kind of compassion. You don't. You have a full life to share with your child. My time with my son was cut off after 17 years. That's not enough. The night Ethan was killed, you made a whole lot of bad choices. With your children, don't raise them to be like you. Raise your children with a good choice to love and to forgive the very same things you chose to deny my son Ethan. Nothing this court or anyone will do will bring back my child, my son, Ethan. My heart is filled with anger at the injustice our family has experienced and the narrative that somehow my son caused his own death, which is not true. My son never got out of the car to fight. It wasn't in his nature, but somehow he was painted as the aggressor, and he was not. So, Your Honor, considering the fact that this felony is considered a low-level felony, these are just misdemeanors, I would request that your sentence for both of these individuals to be the absolutely max allowed by law. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lyman.
Oh, jeez. Poor father. Poor family.
Good afternoon, ma'am. If you can state your name, please, for the court reporter.
It's Christy Lane. I'm Ethan's aunt and godmother. I ask your permission to address the defendants directly.
Yes, you may, ma'am. And for the record, I do have written statements from Ethan's aunt and Ethan's mom. I believe that you're going to present most of that here in court today. I also have a short letter that was written by Ethan's younger brother. So just for the record, I do have those in my file, and I have reviewed those. Go ahead.
No remorse. You have shown no remorse for your actions in causing the death of our beloved Ethan. You showed no remorse when the three of you beat Ethan, even as he lay dying on the pavement. You showed no mercy in the aftermath, instead turning your attention to terrorizing his friends and vandalizing his car, not seeking help when it was obvious that he wasn't getting up again. You know what you did. You said it yourself. I hit him and he went to sleep. You know what you did. And aren't you lucky now that some people actually believe it was the pavement that killed him, and not the punch you threw? You showed no remorse in the immediate aftermath of his death. You could have called the police. You showed no remorse in the days, the hours, the week following his death until your arrest, removing the license plate from your car, parking it where it wouldn't be noticed, when instead you could have turned yourself in. Your attorney made much of the early hours of your arrest, but you could have prevented that had you only had some remorse. As your sentencing is considered, I want you both to know something about the 17-year-old whose life was taken way too early due to your actions. Ethan was a force of love and kindness. The oldest grandchild in our family. He was more like a big brother to all of his cousins. He looked after them. He played with them, even when he had friends over in his teen years. He had a radiant smile, an infectious energy. He couldn't see the bad in anyone, and he tried to be a friend to everyone he met. Once he got in an argument with a friend over what sort of people would go to hell. And Ethan's response was, if God loves everyone, then so should I. And that is how he lived his life. He couldn't tell a lie. He couldn't bear it if his actions or words hurt someone, and he would try to make it right. In fact, if you had given him a chance, I have no doubt in my mind that he would try and make it right with you. But you didn't let him. I counted 10 seconds it took for you to get to his car from the time his friends started running back to it. You know what that means to me? That means that you all immediately made that decision to go look for a fight. You didn't give him a chance. You were the one looking for trouble that night. And in 10 seconds, you caused it. You could have made 1,000 other choices, but you wanted a fight. And I can't help but think, what would have happened if you took those court-mandated classes that you were supposed to, not once, but twice? Maybe you would have learned how to calm down in 10 seconds. But no, you ran to Ethan, and you threw the first punch. What would have happened had you been picked up on that warrant that was issued May 12th? You might not have been at that basketball court. You have a history of violence. This is what you do. And you have no remorse for your actions, and you've proved that over and over again, each time you violated parole for your past crimes and for this one. So let me tell you what life has been like for my family, starting with the early morning of June 3rd, 2022. My children, who were 11 and 8 at the time, were supposed to have their last day of school. Instead, our daughter woke up and found us sitting in shocked silence on the couch, but she looked at us and she knew something was wrong. She stopped on the stairs, and before we could say anything, the first words she blurted out in a panic were, "Did somebody die?" Trying to comfort my children when I was lost in my own grief is something I will never forget. It took about a week for my kids to gain the courage to ask me, "Do we know yet how Ethan died?" And as I struggled to find the words to explain to them his death in the simplest way I could without lying them, because I will not lie to my children about how you killed Ethan, I was struck by the horror on their faces. And they replied, "Why would someone do that?" I have no words to explain your actions. On June 6, 2022, Ethan was supposed to have his first college visit. Instead, we were planning his funeral, picking out his gravesite. I want you to know and remember these words from the undertaker. There was a lot of bruising. You may want to consider long sleeves. I was brought back to that moment as I had to sit in this courtroom and watch you kill Ethan. And when I listened to the medical examiner say there's no cuts on his right hand, when Ethan was right-handed, was he even able to defend himself when it was 3 against 1? Ethan's death is like a glass shattering. Our grief and sadness are so obvious, like big pieces of broken glass, and we know how to cradle those sharp pieces carefully because they cut us and it hurts. But some moments hit us unexpectedly, like the sting of being cut by a tiny shard of glass we didn't see, and we never know when it will stumble upon these slivers that cut us to the core. One sliver that cut me is when my son confessed he was scared to go to school because Ethan was killed at a school, and he asked, what if what happens to Ethan happens to me? You have shattered our family. We were once so close, sharing weekly family meals, celebrating every birthday, holiday, and now we can barely get together because the loss of Ethan hurts so much, and we have no words to comfort each other. We feel lost because he is absent, and he will never join us again. All that summer, my 9-year-old niece said, I miss Ethan. He was my best friend. We suffered even deeper cuts and continue to do so when we have to endure the public discourse that surrounds Ethan's death from a media and people that are determined to victim blame and victim shame Ethan, printing many falsehoods about him and his character when none of these people knew him or knew us. And because our grief was and continues to be private and not for public consumption, when you can't get a story from us, they willingly printed lies sprouted from your attorneys' mouths, or worse yet, speculated themselves and wrote fictions that should have been labeled based on a true story. We found ourselves helpless and wanting to defend Ethan, a person who didn't need defending in life. We were accused of falsifying his hopes, his dreams, his kindnesses, when the story should have been focused on you. When the story should have asked, where's Ethan's phone? Where are his car keys? Where's the money that was in his wallet? Why'd you keep the splat? Was it a trophy? Why did you cause $3,000 in damages to his car? Why did you stop his friends from helping him? Why did you beat him until he died? There is no closure for us. There's no sense of justice. There's no sentence long enough that will bring back the light that you extinguished. We have a hole in our hearts that will never be filled. So I have my own sentence for you. When you look in the face of your child who smiles back at you with unconditional love as Ethan did, you see the face of Ethan David Liming. When someone smiles and says hello or holds a door for you as Ethan used to do, you see the face of Ethan David Liming. When someone hugs you and tells you they love you as Ethan did, you see the face of Ethan David Liming. When someone moves into your community who's been orphaned, you take them under your wing and you treat them as a brother as Ethan did, you see the face of Ethan David Liming. When a friend needs a place to stay and you welcome them into your home as Ethan did, you see the face of Ethan David Liming. And if you have the grace to live a long life and you have a grandchild that stops by and says hello just because he was in the neighborhood, as Ethan did, may you see the face of Ethan David Liming. May every act of love and kindness extended to you for the rest of your life remind you of Ethan David Liming. And may you always remember that you are responsible for his death. When you look at your hands, may you remember that these are the hands that killed Ethan David Liming. And when you wash your hands, I hope you remember washing Ethan's blood off of them and you see his face. When you hold your child in your hands, may you remember that these are the hands that killed Ethan David Liming. And when your child wants to hold your hand, remember, these hands killed Ethan David Liming. Ethan did not deserve the death you gave him. You robbed him of his future, a future where he dreamed of helping people. But we really don't know if that would be his future, do we? Because his future now lies 6 feet under a tombstone. You robbed us of loving our son, brother, grandson, nephew, cousin, and friend for what should have been a long life. We will never forget Ethan, and we will not allow his life and memory to be defined by his death. Every time you look at your hands, I know you will never forget him either. May he haunt your thoughts, and may you see his face every day of your life.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ma'am. If you could state your name, please.
I'm Jennifer Liming. I'm Ethan's mother. First statement I have is from Ethan's brother. He wanted to address the court. Ethan is my big brother, and he is the biggest influence on my life and my best friend. And I look up to him, and he was the best brother. We did everything together. And ever since what happened, nothing's ever been the same, and I don't think it ever will. I asked the judge in the court to please give the maximum sentence. My son could have made better choices that night, but nothing he chose should have resulted in his death. The defendants had choices they could have made too. The choices they made resulted in beating and killing my son. That night, they didn't just kill my son, but a part of me died too. A part of my younger son died too. Since the night the police knocked on my door to tell me Ethan was gone, I have been living in a nightmare, praying and hoping I will wake up from it and he will be here. I go to bed every night wondering if Ethan was scared and if he felt alone as he died in that parking lot. And now I have the pictures in my head to go with it. When I finally can get a few hours of sleep, I wake up realizing this is not a nightmare. This is my reality, and he is gone. I am reminded that I will never see his smile or hear his laugh. I will never hear him call me mom, and I will never understand this. This is soul-crushing. No one can ever understand this unless they have lived through it. I will never see my son again. Ethan was a good boy. Ethan wasn't a bully. He brought kids home who needed a place to stay. He was always bringing kids over to eat with our family. He was the first to make friends with the new kids who joined the football team. The way my son was described in this trial does not define who he was. I will never get to see Ethan again, see what he would look like as a grown man, or see what career he would have chosen. And I will never get to see or hold his children. Since that night, my younger son sleeps in the basement. He doesn't want to sleep in the room where he heard the police downstairs and came out from hearing their voices to ask what was going on. You can't imagine what it feels like to have to tell your son that his brother and his best friend is dead and gone. The look of horror and shock on his face is imprinted on my mind forever. You took my youngest son's innocence. He was a loving and happy boy. Now he is angry and sad and full of pain. He spends most of his time in the basement because that is where he and Ethan would hang out. He told me he feels so alone that when he grows up and his dad and I are gone, he will have no one to share memories with, to celebrate birthdays with, or holidays with. If he has kids, they won't have an uncle or cousins, and he won't get to be an uncle. Ethan was his big brother and best friend and mentor. Ethan was the person he would go to for help in school, to give him advice about girls, life, sports, and everything. As a mother, I want to fix this and make it better, and I can't. My faith isn't what it used to be. I'm hanging on to it and rebuilding it because it's the only hope I have of ever being with Ethan again. I can't fathom never seeing him again. I wish the defendants would have treated my son the way they would have wanted their child treated if their child made the same choices Ethan made. Would they feel their child deserved being beaten and killed? I asked for the maximum sentence so they have that time to think about what they did, how they could handle themselves better in society. The defendant repeatedly went against the court's instructions when on home arrest. I feel giving him the maximum sentence will show him that he has to abide by the laws and not take matters into his own hands. If he would have called the police that night, like he claimed he wanted to, my son would still be standing here with me. So I beg the court to please give justice to my son, Ethan David Liming.
Thank you very much. Bishop. Honor, the state, on behalf of the family, on behalf of the community, asks for the maximum sentence for these defendants and their actions. I'm not sure if Mr. Sin just misspoke. There is no presumption of community control on the felony aggravated assault under 29-29-13. In regard to Mr. Deshaun Stafford, he has repeatedly showed this court that the court's conditions of his bond, I guess the rules and laws, court orders were applied to him. He was repeatedly failing to follow the conditions of his bond for the pendency of this case. This is the 6th violation of his bond that we received throughout this case, and we were able to give him many chances on that, and he failed to apply, he failed to respond to pretrial supervision. The court, as he was supposed to, he gave it time and time again in report, but he showed that he was not going to follow court orders. I think somebody who shows us that, shows you that, is not going to be able to comply with just the conditions of his bond. Just showing up to pretrial release is not going to be able to comply with the conditions, the rigors of probation. So I want to bring that, and I know that you know that, Judge, but I want to put that on the record and bring that to your attention. Ultimately, I will just add that this is the worst form of the offense. You have the discretion to give whatever sentence you feel is appropriate. An aggravated assault resulting in someone's death is the worst form of the offense. And based on that, based on the statements of the family, based on Mr. Deshaun Stafford's inability to follow the law, the rules, and the court orders, we ask for that. And I think justice in this case for this family will never be justice for them. But at least giving the maximum penalty, the maximum sentence, will show the defendants, maybe get a tiny bit of solace, but I doubt it, but at least something to show that their loss is for nothing, is not for nothing. That Ethan deserves that justice. So that's what we ask.
Thank you, Ms. Shooky. So, this case has been particularly difficult for everyone. It's been difficult factually, legally, and certainly emotionally. And to that point, I first want to express my deepest sympathy to the Lyman family. Our entire community is heartbroken and sorry for your loss. I have sons. I have sons who were high school athletes and college athletes, and I cannot imagine your pain. If there was any way to change those 75 seconds last summer, I don't know a single individual that would not do so. It only took 75 seconds to change both of these families forever. And in those 75 seconds, I can count at least a half a dozen and probably more decisions of everyone involved that, had they chosen a different course of action, Ethan's death might have been avoided. This really was, unfortunately, a perfect storm of poor decisions by all of these young men. I'm going to start with defendant B, Mr. Tyler Stafford. Mr. Stafford has been found guilty of a single count of misdemeanor assault. I'm first going to note that defendant C, Mr. Donovan Jones, was also charged and previously found guilty of misdemeanor assault. However, he was charged only in relation to his interactions with Mr. Stefanko and Mr. Shady. Mr. Jones was not charged in relation to Ethan Lyman, or maybe more specifically, accurately, he was charged, but then was not indicted after the grand jury with any actions in relation to Mr. Lyman. I point that out only to distinguish the sentence that I'm going to impose on Mr. Stafford with the sentence that I imposed on Mr. Jones. As to both of the defendants, the court has considered the plea negotiation, has considered the PSIs, the statements of counsel, the statements of the victim's family, as well as the entire record in this case. Based upon the facts and circumstances of the case and consideration of the relevant sentencing factors, I am to apply the minimum sanction that the court has determined will protect the public, promote the rehabilitation of, and punish the offenders without imposing an unnecessary burden on state or local resources. So as to Tyler Stafford, on count 1 of the indictment, the court will impose a sentence of 6 months incarceration for the crime of assault, a misdemeanor of the first degree.
What?
I will note that the Summit County Jail is overcrowded, and misdemeanants are not generally held at the jail. Mr. Stafford will likely be moved to the CAS facility or to a jail in a neighboring county, I will allow him to serve his sentence at CAS because at CAS he can receive some programming, receive some cognitive classes, etc. That goes to Mr. Gallick's point that Mr. Stafford sitting in the jail for 4 months may not assist anyone. Mr. Stafford can still serve his time at CAS and receive some programming there. As to defendant A, Mr. Deshaun Stafford. As I stated, Mr. Stafford has been found guilty of 1 count of aggravated assault, a felony of the 4th degree, and 1 count of misdemeanor assault. A few things about the law related to sentencing on these counts. First, pursuant to statute, whenever a defendant is found guilty of both a misdemeanor and a felony, any period of incarceration imposed for those offenses must be served concurrently or at the same time. Second, pursuant to statute, while there may not be a presumption of probation, certainly I agree with Mr. Sin that many 4th degree felonies do result in probation. For most felonies of the 4th degree, indeed Ohio law under the TCAP statutes requires those sentences to be served in the local jail and not in the state prison system. However, where the offense is an offense of violence, as is the crime of aggravated assault, and where the seriousness of the offenses is considered and other factors are present, a prison term may be imposed. In this case, the maximum prison term that the court could impose is 18 months incarceration.
That's it?
I have considered all of the relevant factors. I do believe that this case is among the most serious forms of the offense of aggravated assault. The victim suffered serious physical harm, and the sentence will be proportional to the harm caused. The defendant also has a misdemeanor crime of violence and a felony offense as a juvenile, and he did have violations of pretrial supervision and GPS monitoring, which may indicate a likelihood that community service or community control would not be successful. On count 2 of the indictment, the court would impose a sentence of 18 months incarceration for the crime of aggravated assault, a felony of the 4th degree.
A year and a half.
On count 4, the court would also impose 6 months of jail sentence for the crime of assault, a misdemeanor of the 1st degree. Again, pursuant to Ohio law, those would be served concurrently for a total of 18 months incarceration. Mr. Stafford, you may also be subject to up to a 2-year period of post-release control following your release from prison. If you violate the conditions of that supervision, the parole board may impose to be served concurrently or at the same time. Second, pursuant to statute, while there may not be a presumption of probation, certainly I agree with Mr. Sin that many 4th degree felonies do result in probation.
Yeah, what?
Under the TCAP statutes, however, where the offense is an offense is considered and other factors are present, a prison term may be imposed. In this case, the maximum prison term that the court could impose is 18 months incarceration. I have considered all of the relevant factors. I do believe that this case is among the most serious forms of the offense of aggravated assault. The victim suffered serious physical harm, and the sentence will be proportional to the harm caused. The defendant also has a misdemeanor crime of violence and a felony offense as a juvenile, and he did have violations of pretrial supervision and GPS monitoring, which may indicate a likelihood that community service or community control would not be successful. On count 2 of the indictment, the court would impose a sentence of 18 months incarceration for the crime of aggravated assault, a felony of the 4th degree.
Whoa.
On count 4, the court would also impose 6 months of jail sentence for the crime of assault, a misdemeanor of the 1st degree. Again, pursuant to Ohio law, those would be served concurrently for a total of 18 months.
Man down, gang. Man down. Oh, hold on. Man down. I say, hold on now. Bring that back. All right,
would
gang.
also impose 6 months of incarceration or jail sentence for the crime of assault, a misdemeanor of the first degree. Again, pursuant to Ohio law, those would be served concurrently for a total of 18 months incarceration. Mr. Stafford, you may also be subject to up to a 2-year period of post-release control following your release from prison. If you violate the conditions of that supervision, the parole board may impose a prison term as part of your sentence of up to 1/2 of your stated prison term. I'm not going to impose any fines. I will order that the defendants pay court costs. You will be given the opportunity to pay those costs on a payment schedule, and if you're not able to do so on a timely basis, you could be ordered to do community service in order to satisfy that cost judgment. I do have 56 days credit for defendant B, Mr. Tyler Stafford. I have 137 days credit for time already served for Deshaun Stafford, defendant A. And I will inform both defendants that you understand that you do have a right to an appeal in this matter within 30 days of the filing of the court sentencing entry. If you're unable to pay for the cost of the transcript, the record, and all relevant documents required for the appeal, they will be provided to you without cost. And if you are unable to pay for an appeal, you are entitled to have the notice of appeal filed without payment of a filing fee. Also understand that if you are unable to afford counsel for an appeal, counsel will be appointed for you without cost. Do you understand that, Mr. Deshaun Stafford? And Mr. Tyler Stafford? All right. Very good. Mr. Sin, I know you discussed an appeal with your client. Is his request that counsel be appointed for that purpose?
I'd like to have him talk about it with somebody, so yes, you should have that up to me.
All right, I will.
I don't go the other way.
Understood. Makes generally trial counsel is not counsel for an appeal. Give everything a second look. I will get counsel appointed for Mr. Stafford. Anything further from counsel?
Your Honor, Tyler Stafford, we haven't decided if he wants to appeal or he wants to make counsel.
Okay, very well. You will let me know if an appeal is forthcoming. Ms. Schucke.
Judge, there is a matter of the felony 1 involuntary manslaughter count that the jury was hung on in regard to Mr. Deshaun Stafford. After reviewing that hung jury, after speaking with those jurors, after reviewing the case, the evidence, the trial, the witnesses' statements, and witnesses' testimony, we had numerous meetings in our office about that. Based on all of that, we are electing not to pursue a retrial on the felony 1 involuntary manslaughter count. And we have notified the family of that yesterday.
Okay. Then as to count 1 for defendant A, that count will be dismissed without prejudice. I believe.
If you may speak, just want to make sure you understand that that's against the family wishes.
Thank you, Mr. Gutierrez, who is counsel on behalf of the Lyman family. Okay, at this time.
One additional thing, Your Honor. I know my client didn't do great on house arrest, but he is having a baby today. So I'm going to make the effort to ask that you give him a report date, let him be out for the birth of his child.
Stay object, Judge. Let this be over today.
I agree. At this time, I think Mr. Stafford should be remanded to custody and continue to serve a sentence.
Right.
Thank you. Court's in recess.
Now, the reason you didn't see Donovan Jones in his court appearance is because he pled no contest to 2 counts of misdemeanor assault that was given a suspended sentence. He wasn't charged in connection with Ethan's demise. His assault counts were related to Ethan's friends. Check out what Ethan's dad had to say after the sentencing less than 48 hours ago.
Where the brothers, found guilty of assault in the killing of Ethan Liming, learned their fate today.
Deshaun and Tyler Stafford received the maximum sentence. Matt Rascone has been following this case and joined us now live from the Summit County Courthouse in Akron. Matt, good evening.
Good evening, Russ and Christy. Yeah, the family told us after they felt like prosecutors had failed them in this case.
Yeah.
And we saw some of that sentiment last month. That was when neither of the Stafford brothers was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter. Today, the family let the judge and defendants know what they had lost.
That night, they didn't just kill my son, but a part of me died too. A part of my younger son died too.
Ethan Liming was killed in a fight last year after he and some friends played a prank on the Stafford brothers who were playing basketball. Today in court, sheriff's deputies handcuffed Tyler after the judge gave him 6 months for misdemeanor assault. Deshaun Stafford received 18 months in prison and 6 months that he will serve at the same time. That's for misdemeanor assault and aggravated assault. Ethan's family asked for the maximum sentence. That's what the judge handed down, but his dad told me after this was not justice as he held up pictures of Ethan's body.
Any verdict where the victims' families are left terrified is just a symptom of the fact that there is something deeply sick and wrong with our justice system. Thank you.
Anything you would say about the sentencing?
No. Thank you, man. They should have been convicted of everything and more.
They were playing basketball, minding their business, and trouble came to them. And it seemed like that was lost in the courtroom.
The Stafford brothers were given an opportunity to speak, but both declined to say anything in court. Deshaun's attorney asked the judge if Deshaun could be at the hospital today where his fiancée is giving birth. The judge declined that request, and both Staffords were escorted out in handcuffs. Now, one of the big questions heading into sentencing today was the charge that the jury could not decide on, and that was the involuntary manslaughter charge for Deshaun. A mistrial was declared on that charge, and today the prosecutors let the judge know that they would not retry Deshaun on that charge. And Russ, Ethan's family was not happy about that decision.
Okay, Matt Rascone in Akron. Thank you.
Saying everything that's public about this case, family. Saying how they went about things as far as the law in Summit County, Akron, Ohio. How does this case affect your perception of our justice system? Does the pain and the heartache expressed by Ethan's family during the impact statements sway your opinion? When we consider the details of this case, we must ask ourselves, who was right? And did the jury make the right decision? The answers may not be as clear as we like, but what do you think? Let me know in the comments as you play the jury. Before we get out of here, rest in peace to Ethan. Love and condolences to his family and anyone else who was affected by these series of events that we just talked about. Fam, I hope y'all like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.
Alright, gang, now check it. That was a pretty long one. You know, thanks for watching. If you watch this whole thing with me, that's crazy. My take on it, I feel like 6 months, 18 months plus 6 served at the same time. That's still 18 months. You're not adding it. He's serving at the same time. So them two brothers getting off and one person plead no contest. Now I feel like that alone right there is just madness, bro. Like, at the end of the day, they still deleted somebody, you feel me? And like, for 3 people to gang up on dude, like, you could knock him out and be done with it, you know what I mean? But to still continue to beat him to the point where you actually delete him. And then on top of that, like, maybe he wasn't fully gone, but you decide to fight off his friends and all that. Like, at that point, even if you got hit and initially thought it was real blickies, after a while, like after the first 2-3 seconds, you must realize, bro, these ain't real bullets. Like, I ain't really got shot. And look at these white boys, they laughing, they playing, they got their camera phones out. They probably was yelling, yo, it's a prank, dude, it's a prank, it's a prank. You know how them white boys be, you know how YouTube be, you know? So it's like, I feel like they took it way too far, and 6 months, 18 months is way too little for taking out anybody, bro. You know what I mean? For deleting anybody at all, that's way too little bit of a time. So prayers, my heart, and condolences go out to the family of Ethan. And y'all let me know what y'all think below, bro. Y'all think I'm tripping, bro? You think you'd do the same thing? You'd take it that far? Let me know, bro. And as I said, this drawing is a prequel to something that's coming. You dig? You see, it just took an hour and a half to do this, gang. If you want to do proper drawings, it take time, bro. This ain't nothing you could just, 5 minutes. Nah, bro. So I could teach this to you. All you gotta do is hit that like, hit that subscribe, follow your boy. And until the next video, gang, have a great day, yo. Have a great, blessed, beautiful day. Thank God for life. And go love your family, bro, because you never know when some accident could happen. You feel me? R.I.P. to Ethan and to everyone else. Once again, have a good day, guys.